Hello. Today I'm going to talk about a film that is 75 years old this year, and that is A Streetcar Named Desire. Um, this is the 60th anniversary edition, which is interestingly enough, um, came out in 2012. Um, and To anybody who has never watched this film, there's uh, a description on IMDb. There's actually quite a bit of little summaries. One is troubled school teacher Blanche Dubois uh, uh, leaves a small town in Mississippi and lives with her sister Stella Kowalski and her husband Stanley in New Orleans. Blanche's flirtatious Southern Belle presence causes problems for Stella and Stanley, who already have a volatile relationship, leading to greater conflict within their household. And that's a pretty good summarization of this. Um, and I actually got this when this came out in 2012. Um, this has a 40-page, like a little, it's a digibook with 40 pages of it in it. And this film was nominated for 12 Academy Awards back in 1942, which at that time was a record. And it won for Best Actress for Vivian Leigh, uh, Best Supporting Actor for Karl Malden, and Supporting Actress for Kim Hunter, as well as Black and White Art Direction Set Decoration. This is the very first film to win 3 Academy Awards for acting. To this very day, there has never been a film that has won every acting category. And this, of course, was the breakout film of Marlon Brando. Everybody of the main cast, the only one who was not on the Broadway production, that because this is obviously based off of a play by Tennessee Williams. The only one who was not in the Broadway play was Vivian Leigh. Kim Hunter was Stella, and Karl Malden played Mitch, who was Stanley's good friend. They were in the army together, and they both work at the same factory. And Stella and Blanche, you know, they both grew up fairly well off, but Stella left as soon as she could, and obviously ended up meeting Stanley. And throughout the film, Blanche is kind of we learn a bit more about Blanche, partly because Stanley is looking into her because she's the family home is foreclosed, and basically she has nowhere else to go. And we find out some more things about her past that she doesn't really want to reveal, but as time goes on, she does, or we find out. And it's very interesting just to see all this kind of unfold and this big drama. It's very well acted. And And then here, there's a little excerpt of things written, like a legend in the making, Kowalski and Brando. 60 years after the release of Streetcar Named Desire, it is difficult to determine whether Marlon Brando gave rise to Stanley Kowalski or if Stanley Kowalski gave rise to Marlon Brando. Perhaps the iconic character and the iconoclast movie star are responsible for each other in an equal measure. But one thing is certain, Marlon Brando and Stanley Kowalski have become eternally synonymous. By the airing of the 24th Academy Awards, director Elia Kazan's film adaptation of Tennessee Williams' Pulitzer Prize-winning Broadway play had equally a towering critical and commercial heights of the play, and then some, after receiving an unprecedented 12 Oscar nominations. Though considered a faithful adaptation of the play, Hollywood's strict production code made certain changes to the material so that references to nymphomania and homosexuality were removed from the and the climactic rape scene. Yes, that there is such a thing that is, it is very toned down, as it says here, but it's very implied. And yeah, obviously in 1951, that some stuff, there is quite a bit of a. Another thing is there's quite a lot of heavy material in this. Obviously, there's throughout even the 40s and 50s overall, and even before then, there are many movies that are very, have a lot of heft to them, which nowadays, there's a lot of movies where things of this nature are shown and or maybe not necessarily shown, but they're more explicit in a way, even if it's implied, it's implied in different ways than perhaps here, where here, they had to be very strict about what could and could not be shown. Despite these small but significant changes, the film retains the play's raw emotional power, thanks to no small part to a nuanced yet fiercely uninhibited performance by Marlon Brando, a relative newcomer to the screen. Broadway theatergoers have been treated to Brando's tour de force portrayal of Kowalski on the Broadway production that ran from 1947 to 1949. But with the film's release, the whole new world became witness to the revolutionary new talent. Brando's Kowalski may be the first example of an actor completely dispensing the artificial theatricality that is so often categorized movie performances. Instead of playing up the part, Brando opened up his own wounds as a human being and bared his soul to the camera. Audiences and critics were stunned, though the praise for Brando's performance was generally effusive or effective. Some didn't know how to process what they were seeing. A review from Variety magazine remarked that Marlon Brando at times captures the brutality of a young Pole, but occasionally he performs unevenly in a portrayal marked by frequent garbling of his dialogue. It is to be granted that, as a common laborer, he wasn't expected to project with an Oxian accent, yet Brando overdoes it somewhat. The confusion is understandable. It was the first time people had been exposed to that level of character realism in movies. It helps explain why the performance, now viewed as perhaps the most influential piece of acting in film history, was the only major performance not awarded with an Oscar. Vivian Leigh, Hunter, Karl Malden, all rightfully received awards for their respective categories, but Brando went home empty-handed. It should be noted that he was defeated for the Best Actor Oscar by Humphrey Bogart in The African Queen, an iconic performance, in the Bogey canon, be sure, but not as nearly impactful on film and acting as Brando's Kowalski. We often recognize actors' importance after time has passed, continuing or writing about the film in 1993. Roger Ebert noted how Brando in the scene with Kim Hunter's Stella absentmindedly picks a tiny piece of the lid from her sweater. If you could take that moment and hold it in your mind, with a famous scene where he assaults Stella's sister, Blanche Dubois, you can see the freedom Brando is giving to Stanley Kowalski in the range. If that moment encapsulates the brilliance of Brando's Kowalski, it also demonstrates the brilliance of Kowalski's Brando by fully becoming his character. Brando is an actor totally dedicated to his craft, a man wholly committed to blazing new trails, and an icon in the making whose talent and style would become the standard bearer for all who followed. And he was really like the first person to bring method acting to the masses. Here's some pictures. Vivian Leigh won her second Oscar for this film. Obviously, the first was for Gone with the Wind. And the director, Elia Kazan, he himself has 2 Oscars for directing A Gentleman's Agreement and On the Waterfront, which also has which has Brando also. This is a very good film. Kazan also directed A Tree Grows in Brooklyn, Panics in the Street, East of Eden, Baby Doll, Facing the Crowd, Splendor in the Grass, America, America, and The Last Tycoon. There he is with Karl Malden and Vivian Leigh, and also Mitch Malden. He's very much enamored with Blanche and goes out with her at various times. We see them go out a time or two, and we hear about them going out, and we specifically see them going out once, but we hear them about how they've gone out before, and it's just a very good film and story. Even with the heavy material being covered in here, it's still very good. And there's Tennessee Williams. On the off chance you have not seen him, and other plays he's done is The Glass Menagerie, The Rose Tattoo, Orpheus Descending, and Streetcar Named Desire, and Baby Doll. These digi books they're really cool. yeah, I just kind of wanted to also just read some stuff from here because it had been a while from since I had watched this. Um, and yeah, this is an excellent film, and it says here on the back, that's rated PG. This PG rated version contains material different from the original PG version because this is a restored version from it says 1992, and yeah, and I just keep this in here obviously because yeah. This is just a very good film. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth watching at least once, especially if you really enjoy film and classic films. And this is a classic film you have yet to see. It's definitely worth watching at least once. Um, or if you're a fan of any of the people in here, Brando, Leigh, Hunter, Malden, uh, Elia Kazan, maybe Tennessee Williams. Maybe you've seen some of his stuff or at least read some of his stuff. And if you want to see an adaptation, there you go. This is essentially seen as one of the best adaptations. Obviously, this is very faithful. Certain things obviously changed, but I don't want to spoil too much because I know there have been people who on my channel in the past have commented on films that are like classics. They haven't seen it, and so I don't want to spoil too much. Something like Star Wars or Batman. Maybe Lord of the Rings when I talk about those one day. I think we'll probably spoiling those kind of things. That's one thing because they're very well known. Very much into pop culture. So, unfortunately, even if some people haven't seen certain things, you know, you know about certain stuff even before you might see them. Obviously there are certain lines in here in this film that are very well known, like Brandon yelling Stella. I'm not gonna yell at like how he does it because that could be very loud, as well as Blanche's line. I've always been dependent on the kindness of strangers. You know, yeah. Also, if anything, this is just a great showcasing of acting in the 50s. A shift was definitely happening. Method acting being on full display for Brando, being the character and everything. Which, as time has gone on, some people kind of probably take it a bit too far. For some people, obviously, some may go to a point, but then they don't go too far. Obviously, Christian Bale, for instance, he's obviously gotten into the character where, there's a physicality that he's going to do, like losing some weight, gaining muscle, whatever. He'll do that. For him, he didn't learn any acting. It's just like he does certain things because it's like if he doesn't do that, then it's not going to be good in his mind. But nowadays, if he gains or loses weight, he does it with a nutritionist. And there's Daniel Day-Lewis, who always like in character basically from beginning to end. And Christian Bale is also similar to that, but it's like also even without the gaining or losing weight, it's like he speaks exactly how the character speaks. Like his character has a certain accent, he sounds like that the whole time until he's done filming. You know, he did that with American Psycho, and everybody believed he was preparing for a film where he was playing somebody who was British because he was American the entire time making that film, and as soon as they were completely done with everything, he started talking normally. And then when he was promoting Batman, he sounded American because to him, he didn't believe that anybody would ever accept a Brit playing Batman. And so, since Batman is an American icon, he sounds American every single interview he does. And so, for a lot of people, when Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, those films came out, people believed he was American because the accent is so great. Um, Method acting has obviously been criticized, and I think in a way, like, depending on how it's done, it's fine. I don't think necessarily, there's no real reports that Brando himself was horrible to anybody, but, he kind of had that personality the entire film, Any of the volatile scenes we see of him, he wasn't really like that, but because, there is a limit to what you should do for that. It's like you're in character with the mindset and everything, and maybe if you do like a Christian Bale or something, Daniel Lee Lewis, you keep the voice, accent the exact same until you're completely done, and then there you go. But, don't need to overdo it. And, yeah. Obviously, it's been criticized because of some people going all in on method, which is understandable. Sometimes when people do that, criticism is justified. But then other times it's like, if it works, it works. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But yeah, it all depends on who it is and what they're doing. But yeah, everybody does a great job. Vivian Leigh is excellent. She was an excellent actress. Definitely one who, when you watch, similar to Brando, you can't really take your eyes off her. Yeah, really everybody in this film was great. Karl Malden, Kim Hunter, and everybody is great. Even some of the people who you see here and there in like a couple of scenes, But yeah. Anyway, yeah. A Streetcar Named Desire. Very good film. Definitely one that if you haven't seen, it's worth checking out at least once. Definitely for the performances of everybody involved. I do think Brando should have won Best Actor. Bogart won. Obviously, they gave a reason in there as to why he probably lost, but I also think it's because, Bogart, his only nomination up to that point was for Casablanca, which I think he should have won. But he also probably should have been nominated for, like, The Maltese Falcon, as well as Treasure of the Sierra Madre. It could be a combination of the lack of him not only not winning the Oscar beforehand, but also the fact prior to his win for the African Queen, as well as nomination, he only had one nomination until African Queen. So it was like sort of a makeup in a way. And not that the African Queen is a bad film. I don't want to make it as if I'm saying that it is, because it's a pretty good film. But yeah, the African Queen, when looking at Casablanca and everything, it's like, yeah, he should have probably won for that and been nominated a couple other times. But Marlon Brando would win 2 Academy Awards later. So you know what? at the end of the day, it didn't really hurt him, the awards department. So, yeah. But if you have seen Streetcar Named Desire, let me know what you think of it. About it, do you enjoy it? Do you dislike it? Somewhere in between, like, do you like the performances, but maybe like the story you're not super fond of, or maybe you like the story, but maybe some of the performances you're not fond of. It could be the opposite. Uh, you know, give me your thoughts, um, or if you are interested in watching this now, and have been for a while. Yeah, please let me know in the comments, and I hope all of you are doing well. Please have a great day. Have a great weekend and a great week. May is ending, and I hope all of you will have a great rest of the month, as well as a great Memorial Day. Interestingly enough, yeah, May 25th, which is the 49th anniversary of Star Wars, the original one, you know, it is on Memorial Day, which, when that came out, it was like the Wednesday after Memorial Day. So, yeah, just something that's kind of interesting looking at the calendar. But, yeah, obviously, uh, Memorial Day is primarily an American holiday, so I guess that mostly depends on on if you live in America. But everybody else, I hope you all have a great week and a great weekend. And I will see you all next time. Please take care.